Sounds good.
And I'm going to do a quick introduction. We should go ahead and start. It's 12:01. Thanks everyone for joining us. My name is Garmai Araya. I'm the CEO of New Light Technologies, and my role is to provide the team with the space they need to do their best work. And part of that is access to our partners and learn about the latest and greatest and what our partners are doing. ESRI was our first partner. I think, Anthony, you were there when we became a partner back 16 years ago now. You were starting off at ESRI as well, I think, at that time. And we've been going through this journey together, and you've helped us where we needed it. And really, you and your team has continued to evolve and grow with the changes in the economy, but you guys stayed stable with being available and accessible. That's, I think, a key ingredient. And so I want to say thank you for joining us. Anthony Puzzo is the state government's lead for ESRI, and let you take over from here, Anthony, just to get us a little bit of background on yourself and what you do and your strategy for state and local governments.
Okay. All right. Thanks for inviting me. This is an interesting forum. I like this kind of conversation that we're having. My name is Anthony Puzzo. I'm with ESRI. I'm based out of our DC office in Tysons, based at home right now, like everyone else, trying to manage 3 kids. I got an 8-year-old, a 3-year-old, and an 8-month-old. So managing that and working from home is, I don't know. I feel like I need an award at the end of the year for this. My youngest is 8 months old. He was born right before COVID. So my joke is that he's about 48 years old now. So
I'm on the same boat, Anthony. I feel you.
I know, man. It's we're working at home through a crisis. That's basically what we're doing. We're not really working from home. So you got an
elementary school 1 floor up from you, or 1 floor down the hall?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So that's been interesting, and so what I do at ESRI is I'm the team lead for our state government practice. So work a lot with the local region there, state of Maryland, DC, and Virginia, and kind of up and down the East Coast. I've also been taken over as our COVID task force for state government, where a lot of the focus has been coming for COVID response, and dashboards has been coming out of state government, state public health, usually in state emergency management. So I think I was going to talk about some of our response efforts there and what we're doing to kind of respond to that, and then also some resources to help our customers and to help our users really do things better, faster, cheaper. And that's kind of been our goal through this, is just being very responsive, reactive, and helpful through this whole thing. And our disaster response program, which has been up for probably 15 years or so.
Yeah.
A few years ago during Irma and what was the other one? Irma and Maria and Harvey that year. We had upwards of about 700 or so disaster response requests, which are all kinds of requests for, things like free software or help or tech support or things really people need fast access to. And that was pretty overwhelming. This year alone, we've had over 4,000 DRP requests because of COVID. So, I mean, the amount of need for geospatial technology has really taken off this year, I feel like, and really in some new areas like health, where they've just commoditized it over the years and hasn't really looked at it as a strategic investment. And now some folks are kind of paying the price for it. Others who did go all in are really benefiting from it. I would say that it's kind of like
absolutely. And we have a few of the team members that are on this call actually work with the FEMA side anyway, on that coordination that you mentioned. And so it's been tremendous. And having the history over the last 15 years, it's Sandy, right? Irma, and Maria, and even this year with Delta just hitting really hard. So
Yeah.
the geoscience aspects of and the GIS technologies that support emergency response, forget about all the city planning, state planning, economic all those are still going on. And then you got natural disasters, and then we got the COVID. And I think the glue to all of these is GIS. I might be biased.
They're all location problems. They're all, you got to know. I mean, one of the biggest recommendation is to stay 6 feet apart. That's a location proximity problem, just right there.
Yep.
So, I mean, everything has a location. You want to know, I think the first thing you do when you go to that, Johns Hopkins map or the Maryland dashboard, or when you go right to your house and your neighborhood, and you try to see how is it affecting me, and when is my school going to open, and are we trending up or down, and how do I know these numbers are real or not? I mean, that's the things you probably ask. And, I think what our users are doing is trying to do the best they can with the information they have available to them.
Absolutely. Let me ask you a thing about the DMV particularly, because the DMV, I think it was yesterday or the day before, DC government put out a hot zone list of where you can come from. And so, whether if you're coming from certain states, I think there's like 30 some odd states that if you come, you have to quarantine for 2 weeks. We're in a very interesting, has ESRI been involved in the DMV states, Maryland, Virginia, Maryland, in terms of, we're so interconnected, but yet have so many different policies, especially when it comes to COVID. How is your team being involved in helping them discern data? That's interesting.
Well, that's what I have a couple of things prepared for. Can I share my screen, and then I'll show you a couple?
Yeah, I'm gonna stop share. I'm gonna stop share. You can share your screen, and let's go with it. Awesome.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think one of the things that ESRI did early on, probably right around end of March, was to put up this COVID GIS Hub. This is an ESRI product presented by ESRI. So this is our hub for our users, where you could go in here, and this is what I was talking about, those like 4,000 plus DRP requests.
Yeah.
That's where people clicking through this and needing GIS assistance, whether that's licensing, whether that's tech support help, people like programmers, data, whatever that is, they can request that through here. And we have a team that is very responsive 24/7 to that. They've been responding to wildfires this year, COVID, hurricanes, you name it, flooding. There's been all kinds of things that they've been looking for. And so what we've tried to do here is kind of have a one-stop destination for our users to come and find out all kinds of different information products.
Yeah.
We list a couple of the key applications that people are using. This is the Johns Hopkins dashboard. You're probably familiar with that. We also indexed a lot of the US applications. There's nearly 1,000 applications in here now of just people sharing out dashboards or story maps or hubs or some kind of information that they're sharing out to the public of what they're doing. And then we've been cataloging, as this thing has kind of progressed, it really went to a response. How do I get information out there about what's going on in the community? And then it was, oh God, how do I talk about, my workplace, and how do I get information there? And then it was like contact tracing, and how do I, contact trace, more efficiently. And we've seen that kind of progress. And now we're into the vaccine distribution talk, where we're working with some states on looking at vaccine distribution, because this isn't going to be the same distribution as your flu shots.
No.
One, there's just not enough inventory for it. Two, you have an unbalance in how this really affects this virus really affects people, right? So that vaccine needs to go to the vulnerable populations first, and you need to find out where they are. This vaccine, what they're talking about, needs to be stored at below 15 degrees Fahrenheit. So I mean, there's all these different kind of guidelines that these things are going to have to follow. So really, that's a location problem in itself on how do you get that vaccine out? How do you keep it safe? How do you track that inventory? And so we've got some really nice resources here on just the 5 steps of looking at vaccines. And then we've shared some really nice just visualizations that are different than the common dashboard. This one's one of my favorite here is this COVID pulse. And what this is doing, it's doing these little pulse trend lines here. And you can kind of see how the virus has affected each one. And this is what they kind of talk about when they say flatten the curve, is really flatten this line here, that bump, and how you get through. And what's nice about this is ESRI cartographers put this together, and they look at the emergent, spreading, pandemic, or controlled end of things, and then where those cases are. So it's a really nice visualization about where things are going.
Great visualization. As soon as I realized what those curves were, kind of gives you an immediate, all right, where are the flat curves? Where are they really bumpy?
Exactly. Like if you go down to Florida, there's a huge bumps in there. If you go up to New York City, actually, there was huge bumps, early on here. You can kind of see those bumps of where, really at first it was, how do we not get our hospitals to hit capacity, right? And New York was one of the biggest ones of like, they're pretty much right there. They're at or just over capacity, and they need help, right? So that was one of the biggest things. And so you can kind of see those bumps in the road there very, very clearly with this kind of visualization. So a lot of that data and everything is built into the system. There's some information here of how to get started. There's some really nice dashboards that some of third party has built. These MCH ones have been really key recently because it looks at K through 12 schools and which schools are open, which ones are closed, private schools, public schools. So some really nice information here. And then there's some partner stuff here. This census data hub has been really popular too, because this kind of just maps the population affected in each community. One thing that ESRI has done really well through this is really work with our data partners to free up that data and enable that through the ArcGIS online platform. So anybody who's making a map or an app can get access to that, including things like social distancing data. So our partners like SafeGraph and Facebook and Blue Dot and Unicast have all shared their data through our platform, so you can get a feature-ready data set in your hands. DC has done some really nice work on this social distancing stuff, because you can see trends, weekly trends in that SafeGraph data of like where people are going. And early on, you saw it was the grocery stores and big box stores, and then everything else was really small. And then you can kind of see as people are starting to move around a little bit, you're seeing other things kind of get popular. And then there's some really nice economic and socioeconomic data sets provided in here. So you don't have to do a lot of that legwork. I remember, when I first started at ESRI, it was, okay, you want to make this map, where do you find this data? It's either in a shape file locked together, back in someone's server, or you got to beg, borrow, and steal for it, or you got to actually pay for it.
Right.
Thousands of dollars to pay for that data. Now we're democratizing this data and putting this through our Living Atlas so everyone can get access to this data.
I think that is one of the most important transformations in the GIS industry, especially coming together like this during a crisis, is data availability, reducing the barriers, essentially making it the open source track to deal with a major international crisis like this, a pandemic.
I agree.
I got to applaud ESRI for doing that, because we all know companies have to survive and make money, but you guys putting that out there like that is very important. So I think
it's definitely a team effect. I mean, it takes a village to kind of put together this data and share it out like this. So a lot of thanks goes to those partners like SafeGraph and them that actually enable that process to get that data out there.
Right. JHU, I'm gonna keep remembering them. That really put the dashboarding on the map, I think, really.
That dashboard, G, was getting up to 2 billion hits a day in April. 2 billion hits a day. That is just incredible scale. And the way that we had to scale up our environment to match that was also, I think, some pretty incredible work by our system admin team. And ArcGIS Online now is, has that ceiling of 2 to 3 billion hits a day for an application, which is pretty incredible scale for an app like that.
I'm looking up the football Super Bowl stats real quick to see how that 2 billion hit compares. Meanwhile,
yeah, pretty incredible, especially for one application coming out of a university. It was basically made over a weekend with the team there. They were tracking that pretty early. They were tracking through that dashboard, back in December and January when they first kind of got wind of it. I mean, there's a really nice documentary out of Johns Hopkins called Mapping a Monster. It's all recorded. There's like a 4 or 5 part documentary that they did, like webcast series. I would encourage you to go check that out because that was really well done. It gives you kind of like the background of like how that all happened and how they're getting the data and how they're mapping it and putting into dashboards.
Was that a good case example for states to look at and say, all right, we got to share data. We got to make it to. How did that affect your customers?
Federal government. I mean, we had pictures of like, the leadership, DHS leadership, vice president, Trump in some of the briefing areas with that JHU. That became the authoritative source of the pandemic, which is kind of incredible. I mean, you think like it's coming out of it's coming out of a third party. That's not that's not HHS. That's not WHO. That was out of drug. They're incredibly credible, but it was just, they're not a federal entity. So it did make some people kind of step up their game a bit on how they do that. And here's another visualization I wanted to show you of just this same kind of like pulse map here, but just in different arrows here. This is actually our new mapping map viewer that's going to be part of ArcGIS Online. It's all made with our JavaScript 4.0 API, and it has a lot of the like vector tiles in here and very fast display, so you can do some really cool visualizations in it. This is in beta right now, but it's coming out here shortly as non-beta. But you can kind of go into these and you can kind of see, are we spreading? Are we trending up or trending down? Very, very kind of easy display here on showing what's going on.
Let's go back to the basics, right? Cartography, quickly being able to display information that's
just tell me the story, right?
Absolutely. I think Florida represents a lot of things in terms of its size, variability, the differences in terms of the economics around the state and the cultures and so on. And it's like a microcosm of the United States, essentially. I guess that's why they call them swing states in the politics. But
well, Florida's a very different state. I mean, I grew up down in Florida. I grew up down like the West Palm Beach, Jupiter area. But this I-4 road that goes from Tampa to like Daytona, I mean, that's like 2 different states, North Florida and South Florida. And then you get to the coastal areas here, it's totally different, socioeconomic between what you get in the coastal areas to what you get inland. So Florida's a very different kind of place,
How are they doing in terms of coordinating counties with the states? And has ArcGIS Online been useful? I know they were in the news for data issues maybe a month ago or 2 months ago. Someone was making data.
Yeah, they put together this dashboard pretty early on. This is out of the Florida Department of Health. This is actually using one of our new app builders called Experience Builder, where they took Operations Dashboard and they put it into this Experience Builder application. So you can actually, if I scroll the screen down a little bit, you can kind of see it goes into like mobile mode here.
That was
and
quick.
then
This is a big deal in responsiveness, right?
This is a pretty big deal, right? So you can do a really nice, mobile ready design here on the fly. And this took no coding whatsoever. We took an operations dashboard and we put this into Experience Builder. So little trick there. But this Experience Builder is probably one of our hottest new app builder tools in the ESRI platform, and a great way to kind of really make a condensed application. If you want to do like a survey and a map and a chart and everything, you can put that into Experience Builder and then drop that into a hub site. So, but yeah, Florida, this dashboard got a lot of recognition actually. They have a lot of information on here, and this was held up as the example by CDC and Dr. Birx and Fauci's team on a great example. And so we actually worked with the CDC over the last about 4 or 6 months, about 4 or 5 months, on a contract to help other states build out or strengthen their dashboard capabilities. Because there was definitely a difference between what like South Dakota was doing and what Florida was doing, or what Missouri was doing compared to Arkansas. So it really wasn't a level playing field, and really it was, let's make sure you got cases, deaths, hospitalization, and deaths out there as key indicators, and then build in those demographics as needed.
It's all about getting information quickly, readily, easily understandable in the hands of the public, so that they can make an informed decision about what you're going to take. Obviously, states are going to have direct access to making sure they have quality data there. I want to ask you a little bit about sustainability. I know that that's something that's been big in terms of the sustainability of long-term data quality and accessibility in terms of software access. And there's a big trend in the industry, and it would be interesting to see where the latest is. I know that ESRI is part of, for example, the UN GIM, which does a lot of global practices around open source and so on. ESRI is actually a founding member, I believe, on that. What's the latest on the US facing stateside areas of concern around accessibility, open source data, software, and so on? One thing that we do as a company is we look at what customers are asking us to do. And sometimes when they say they want open source, they mean sustainability. And so that's something that in the state governments, I'm sure that comes up a lot.
It does. It's mostly about, data access is a big one. Normally when we're talking like open source, it's mostly not actually open source that I talk about. It's mostly interoperability, right? How do these systems interop with one another? And that was through that CDC project. That was a glaring thing that we saw with other platforms that they were using that are total black boxes. I think one thing that ESRI does, we spend a lot of money every year on making sure we have open standards. We're big on the OGC standards. Right. We contribute a lot to the OGC standards, and we try to enhance those things. I mean, I think we do KML just as good as some of the other KML providers out there.
Strength. That is a big strength in being ready and evolving with it, and being contributing to that, to the OGC standards. Obviously, are big for us as a company, where we're helping data interoperability across multiple platforms. And I think ESRI's done a great job on that. And in terms of where you see the trends for continued, is GIS data science was going to be one of my other questions.
Well, let me finish that thought.
But there's some people putting that out there. They're beyond. I think GIS is a data science.
It is data science, and it's an enabler for data science too, which I think it gets overshadowed a bit. Let me finish that thought on open data though, because I think that's a big component of our platform. And one thing that we've seen is some states like the state of Maryland, where they've gone in, they've published open data, right? And they're using ArcGIS Hub to present that open data, but now they're actually providing additional context for it. Yeah. So the state's coronavirus.maryland.gov site, sponsored by the Department of Health and really managed by Department of IT, this is hosted on ArcGIS Online, this entire site. This is hosted in ArcGIS Hub, and this has information for obviously all the dashboards and testing, and just the basic government information about what you should do if you have symptoms and everything, right? So this is all, but it's all really data driven, and you can search here and you can see cases, and then you can actually get the actual cases for this right here. It links right to the data set here. Here's the data, here's the API Explorer. Here's how I could download it as shapefile. Most of them have shapefile or KML or CSVs. Yes. Or how can I write an API to it? Where's the metadata behind it? So there's a lot of different things that you can do with this. Our friends at DC, they do this really well, right? They do this phenomenal. They share over 1,400 data sets here on their open data platform, and not just GIS data like zoning information like polygons, or even lines like streets, or even dots like trees. They're sharing out Google Analytics data sheets. They're sharing out purchase card transactions, tabular stuff. They share that all on their open data site. And then they provide, and this is what I love about what DC does, and I've seen other states copycat this now, like North Carolina's One Map is basically modeled after DC's, because they provide context around the content that they're providing, right? So you want to know about their COVID response, here's all their data around it, and then they link to the apps that are associated with that, right? So it's not just the data, it's the context that provides with it.
I'm really biased towards DC, as you know, in DC.
Well, so am I.
And DC, you and I have done many, many years of conversations around DC GIS and DC platforms, and our team still supports this platform, but really proud of what DC government has done operationalizing their geospatial data and then making that the hub for all open data. That's important. So from a data science question, the enabler for all the data science that's happening in DC government is the ArcGIS Online now. They attempted a couple of different tracks, and really this has won over. And now model, I can tell you as a graduate student, wanted to go through data sets for experimenting with data, for example.
Of course, yeah. That's like most of the questions that they get are from universities and schools and other places outside of just DC using their data, because they provide the context around it. They provide, you think addressing in DC is so simple. It's not. And they tell you about it. It's all about address points and intersections and centroids and points of entry. There's a lot of things that go into just addressing. I just love what they do with this stuff here.
Well, I still on that screen just for the team, some of the NLT team members that are on the call. This was the Master Address Repository, the MAR, was the first GIS project that I got as an NLT first contract. That was our first actual contract to build up the MAR, and teamed up with a couple of companies. And it is the standard. We set it up, what is this now, 18 years ago, and it's just continued to evolve, mature. It was done with the ESRI stack in mind at that time. So I'm really proud of that. Thanks for showing that. I'm going to stop tooting my own horn here.
Well, this I'll tell you what, this is a foundational data set. Not everybody has this. Not everybody has this. States are trying to get to this spot now on address points for the entire state. They have to because of Next Gen 911 recommendations and moves to Next Gen 911. They have to have an address point list. You have to. It's not even a nice to have anymore. What Barney's done here, his vision, years ago, is that this is the cornerstone.
Yeah.
You build around this, and he's right on with this. On building this out. This is 99.9% accurate, and not every city has this, and not every state has this, but this is foundational and kind of a game changer. When you have this, you can build out so many more things, and it just gets looked. You take this kind of stuff for granted, but somebody at Octo puts this together with contractors and a whole plan just to maintain this thing. And without it, there's probably other applications like your 311 system wouldn't work as well.
So yeah, kudos to DC team. They're amazing. Long lasting, well organized, delivering quality, not only to the city but to the whole country. So in terms
you asked about
yeah.
Sorry, you asked about data science, and I wanted to bring this up too. One thing that ESRI has done over the last year is that we built in essentially Jupyter notebooks across the entire platform. So we built this into ArcGIS Online now. We built it into ArcGIS Pro, our new desktop tool, and into Enterprise, that you can build out notebooks on the fly, and this connects to your content library. So if I'm in DC, you can actually type into this notebook here, and connect to your content library, and then have a whole API, using the ArcGIS API for Python here on all these other tools that you could bring in and connect to open source tools like Pandas, Python, or machine learning tools, or anything else that you want to do that's additional to that. You could bring that all to that Python notebook and run that and share that.
You just said something near and dear to my heart right now. I just finished really learning and using Pandas, and really loved it. And the integration with the ArcGIS is very important, and for a lot of the rapid data science, data analytics people, I really like to see that in action.
I'll send you a meetup I did recently with a friend in our DC office named Alberto.
Okay.
He's awesome at this kind of stuff, and we did a webcast or meetup with the DataWorks Maryland group, and it's recorded, and he walks through a whole thing of like data wrangling, cleaning it up through notebooks, using things like Pandas to help augment the data piece, and then scheduling analysis through ArcGIS Pro and other means, all using that same notebook. It's pretty neat.
I know.
And then there's also
yeah, go ahead.
One more thing. There's where am I at here? There are learn lessons now to use all this stuff. So you can search here. It's learn.arcgis.com. This is free to anybody to use. And if you type in like Python here, there's all these different learn lessons here. These are all free, and they show you just getting started with Python, 30 minutes. Here's actually programming. It's 3.5, 4 hours. Here, updating real time. So there's a lot of different learning tools now at your fingertips that you can use. And if you need software and you don't have it, they give it to you through these learn lessons here on like a trial basis. So there's some really cool stuff here that you can do right on the fly to learn how to do a lot of this stuff.
This is fantastic. This is the one, if I could just pass on again, reiterate what you just said, learn.arcgis.com. I am really going to be diving in, especially in that conduct section I had a second ago. But again, we do have a lot of team members here who do all kinds of data science work, some tied directly to the ESRI stack and some indirectly. So I did want to, I can't believe it's already 12:35 here, 12:36. People can either chat their questions in, or feel free to turn on your mic and ask. I know that we wanted to make sure we also gave a chance for our team members to do some of the ask questions. So I did want to go into a little bit more in terms of the deep learning one on the AGOL integration with deep learning I mentioned earlier. That's something that I know we weren't necessarily ready to talk about it today, but there is again, with that data science and GIS, some of it is confusion. It is all, to me, a data science, different ends of the spectrum of data science. The deep learning piece is going to be important. A lot of our customers, everyone, whether we just finished a project that we're doing with AGOL that could benefit for example, with a local economic development agency. Obviously, we're doing a lot of work in the federal space, and a lot of it is on the ESRI stack. So in terms of deep learning in the state level, have you seen that take on a little more? What was the driver for that?
The deep learning or machine learning type of projects that I've been working on recently have been more kind of just exploratory, I would say, exploratory type stuff. It's almost like they want to build a bigger hammer to go look for bigger nails type thing. Some of it is actually like needs driven, where they're like, look, I have somebody like this deep learning for object detection. I have somebody sitting there watching video cameras all day and counting cars, literally counting cars. And so there are tools out there that you can, I think it's, what was the one that we used? YOLO. I think we used YOLO as the machine learning library to do image detection on cars and count if it's a car, bus, truck, or pedestrian, and basically just edit a feature service and update an operations dashboard of when you see those vehicles at what times. And so we would update that. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing like that object detection. We're seeing things like land use and things that may have taken thousands of hours of time on imagery, whether it's drone imagery or aerial imagery, putting that through machine learning so you're actually doing processes faster. We're seeing any kind of imagery from terrestrial, like on the ground type stuff, where you can collect data really fast and put that into a database. Things like that are really accelerating the data collection process. And then we have a brand new SaaS platform coming out called ArcGIS Velocity. So this is a combination of our geo event server, which is real-time data. So highly transactional data sets, think like AVL or weather feeds, or like lightning strikes or weather feeds or social media stuff. And then big data analytics, geospatial analytics. We have a server called GeoAnalytics server that really will take batched up billions of points and pull the needles out of the haystack with that. Right. ArcGIS Velocity is going to be a SaaS offering, software as a service offering, that'll be connected to ArcGIS Online. You wire in your data, your highly transactional data, and then you can pull out analytics from that. So don't tell me about all the cars going around this circle. Tell me about all the cars going around that circle that are over 30 miles an hour.
Right.
Or only tell me the ones that are going over 30 miles an hour that are also a truck, and then count those. So on the fly, you can literally pull out that kind of analytics, which is going to be really cool and kind of a game changer there.
I'm excited about that because we did a project a few years back with DC government on a asset management project. So with Cyclomedia, which is also an ESRI partner, and you go throughout.
Yeah, you want to unscramble? Is that easy for you? Whatever's easy, whatever works for you.
Hey Dan, okay, that That's another elementary school or high school going on over there. Essentially, what it's not just about future-looking data coming in, right? It's also about looking at the history of assets that a government agency owns. And then when we talk about assets, a transportation or a public works agency is responsible for knowing its asset. There's a rule called Gatsby 32. It's a requirement that it's for financial appreciation and depreciation of all the assets that they have in the city. Everything from light poles to street signs and so on. So having the deep learning capabilities integrated with the platform is going to be able to allow them to go backwards and say, here's how much we had when we collected that data 5-6 years ago at that time, and here's where it's at now. So that's gonna, because it's too much data to really do manually, even programmatically. I think the deep learning needs to go and attack that and say, all right, here's how much you had at that time in these categories, and here's where you are now, and here's your appreciation. There's so many applications to deep learning. We do have a question from Danon. For these modeling integrations, does ArcGIS host the computation resources to actually train and run models, or is it workflow that data is accessed, run locally or in a cloud environment? So not sure if you see that to distill that, but it's a good question from a practitioner standpoint, right? Like, well, how do we end up using it?
Do we host, say that question again, do we host the data? Is that what?
Yeah, I mean, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep, I can hear you fine.
So, if you're integrating, whether you're a deep learning model, doing object detection or whatever you might be doing, obviously you're accessing data, geospatial data here. Does ArcGIS host the computational resources for you to actually run the modeling in the platform? And if what flexibility do you have for that? Or is the idea that you would export the data into your local environment or cloud environment and run those models directly?
Some of the models can get run right through ArcGIS Online. That's why we're hosting some of those notebooks there. So you can run and host that whole notebook there. Very similar to how GitHub runs those notebooks. Some of the compute power, you would still need external sources to do compute on that kind of stuff. So, if you need a server to crunch through X amount of, you probably still need an Amazon server or something like that to crunch that stuff. But we would host the data, the code, the resources, and then we can bring in external sources and that, like the results from that crunching into that notebook, and then host that final product, which would be a dashboard or a story map or a notebook or something like that.
But it's an interface to the compute. So I think that's half of the battle is, organizing and preparing and then crunching obviously is still being done. That's a good question, Dana. So at some point I could see potentially where if you didn't need it, ESRI could run it. But right now, the fact that it's called Velocity.
Velocity is our real-time and big data analytics engine that would do the compute for you.
Okay.
That has compute power into it.
Do you have transparency or flexibility into the model itself then, or is this all pre-built stuff?
No, you have transparency into the model. You can use as is, or you can design your own.
Gotcha.
Sweet.
And some of the deep learning and machine learning type of processes we're building right into Pro. So just like a tool in Pro is going to be a deep learning tool that you can connect to other data sets. You connect to like the Microsoft, they have like an image processing library. Like you can connect to that. You use the deep learning tool in there and it processes that on the fly. So some of that we're building right into the tools as out of the box tools, but then still having that capability of interacting with Python and designing your own tools out external, bringing those in. We have an R bridge to Pro that you could do that. So Pro is probably going to be your kind of your nucleus of where you could bring a lot of that stuff in. And then there's a notebook inside of Pro that you can store all that and share that notebook as is.
So the notebook is kind of like just a sort of configuration file of sorts.
I guess that's kind of how you can think of it, but it's not going to do the compute that I think you're looking to do.
Well, there's another question, but it's kind of an extension of that, where Ron Goldblatt, the NLT chief scientist, actually, and the previous person, Danon Kroll, is a senior data scientist. They are concerned with both the compute power, and then on the other side, which is an extension of what you just said, Anthony, to what extent do you develop your own ML and AI algorithms? Do you primarily rely on existing theories and adopt them into the ESRI environment? I think you answered some of that. The main contribution I'd like to see is making existing tools more accessible to users via easy-to-use UIs. And I think the AGOL and the ArcGIS Pro kind of start to answer that. So it's around the models and theories once you got the compute.
Well, I could tell you our plan for notebooks is having like starter kits, like templates. So if you want to do image detection, you know, from video cameras or from imagery or something like that, what we plan on doing is providing out starter kits to help you do that, right? They'll be fully editable, very similar to what, I don't know if you've ever seen like our solution templates here. So our solution templates here are starter kits for web applications and mobile applications that are kind of geared towards different industry sectors. We have a ton of them for coronavirus here. And what these do, they're starter kits like health screening. This is a configuration of Survey 123 and dashboard that helps you do health screening. So it has the form already done, it has the dashboard already configured. You basically could edit that form or dashboard, or you could use it as is. You spin this up and you can get going like today in minutes. Yeah. That is the same plan we plan on doing with notebooks, which is why we wanted to include them you know, across the platform. So you could get like sample notebooks or other starter kits that say, hey, this is how you do this. Pop in your cameras here, and this is how it runs. So that is the ultimate plan of that, is to have that configuration. So you're not starting from scratch every time. That's one thing about Jupyter notebooks, is every time you open up a new notebook, it's blank, right? So you got to start from scratch. Here, what we want to do is put out configurations based on commonly used theories, notebooks. We may design our own, machine learning capabilities, but we're probably going to rely on external pieces and bringing those in.
That would be fantastic. I know that we're getting to 12:50 here, so I wanted to leave a few minutes for you to do closing remarks and things you see for the future of this. But I can't not ask you about Excalibur. We have some excited folks who are excited about it. Some who have attended some recent training on it. Is anybody in the state government starting to use imagery tools like Excalibur yet? And what's your take on that?
You know, I've got a couple of the NISGIC community, right? The National States GIS Consortium. Yeah. Like that group is like imagery and addressing all day. I love that group. So they've been interested in that. I'll tell you, I've been doing more work with drones lately than I have with just raw imagery. And I think because of the way that we're working remotely, where we can't send crews out to inspect bridges, they're really kind of diving into this, you know, new medium of collecting data. Yeah. So our new drone package, we have Drone to Map. We've had that for years. Yep. Now we have something called Site Scan, which will do, you can schedule out teams of drone collectors out in the field, automatically plan where you're going to collect in certain areas around the state. Mm-hmm. And then as you collect that, it automatically uploads that to the cloud. And then as you get into your office, that'll be delivered in ArcGIS Online to you. That kind of process I've been seeing more of in state government. The actual hardcore imagery analysis, like you get with Excalibur, in the environmental areas, like doing flood mapping and DFIRM type stuff, I see a growing interest there, but I haven't really seen adoption there yet, like the federal government.
Interesting that you said two key things for, I was just scrolling through the team that's attending today's call. We actually do the different mapping support for Maryland, Delaware, and ongoing for, this is like 10 years in now. We do a lot of work in floodplain mapping. So I could see that use. It didn't even click on my head for Excalibur, but then we actually have 2 FAA certified pilots, drone pilots on this call right now. So
Okay.
interesting. Hey guys, I know I'm not gonna put you on the spot, guys, but definitely check out SiteScan and obviously drone to map. I'm sure you guys have used that, but very exciting.
The SiteScan's really interesting, really cool. It's actually the guys who started 3DR, which was a drone company. They had a flight planning tool that was for free in ArcGIS Online. We ended up investing in most of that company. Actually, a lot of those guys came over to ESRI, and now they're kind of building the SiteScan, not hardware, but the software end of things where you can do your flight planning. This is really cool stuff because it does that imagery in the cloud processing, unlimited amounts of processing in the cloud, and then you can get all those like products, like the elevation models, LiDAR, 2D, 3D type products into ArcGIS Online on the fly.
And for context, 52 states, somewhere like 4,000 counties, and maybe 10,000 cities and towns all have departments of transportations, all requiring to inspect our aging bridge infrastructure.
Yeah.
And it's mostly going to be done, if you just look at just that narrow scope, mostly done by drones for the future. So this is a very important area of capability and growth. Anthony, this has been a great conversation. Thank you for those who asked questions. And this is a lunch and learn that we will continue to do. We'll see if we can have you back a couple months out with updates.
Yeah, man, I've always appreciated our partnership, G, and I always like the work that you guys do. Appreciate you including me today. And if there's anything I can do to help, please let me know.
Absolutely. It's 12:53. Let's do if you see what is your concluding remark around the future vision that you have for GIS?
More location all the time. I mean, I think it's desperately needed. I think I'm at that point right now. I've been at ESRI now 13 years. I just can't get to enough of my customers fast enough. And that's kind of,
and that's why we're here as partners. We really, you know, you, Anthony, particularly, but with the rest of the ecosystem partners, we're here to extend that from you to us, but also where we've gone to you guys to team up on challenging projects or resource challenging or capability challenging project. So the partner ecosystem is important for companies like ours as we build relationships with best in class or the prominent geospatial technology. In this case, ESRI Stack is very important for our work. And so I truly appreciate you coming on. I think people here are welcome to connect with you directly. Anthony Puzzo, I mean, he's very responsive. One of the ESRI guys that I look to because he's got a huge territory, lots of team members working with him, but still makes time for partners. So thank you so much, Anthony.
Hey, thank you, man. We definitely need partners like you. So keep up the great work.
Will do. All right. Well, listen, I'm going to give you back the rest of your day. You get 5 more minutes for lunch. Have a great.
All right. See y'all.
See you.
Take care.